Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to another episode of the Afterburners podcast. It is Tuesday, April 10th, 2018, and we are recovering from Bobby's bachelor party this weekend. Bobby, how did you enjoy your weekend?
It was fun. It was a lot for someone like me who's typically an old man and has like one drink a month, and I had at least 12 drinks total that weekend, if not more.
You were pounding them Saturday. You had some nice drinks back on Saturday.
Yeah, on Friday I drank my first old fashioned, which, by the way, if you've never had an old fashioned before, highly recommend it. I really like old fashions now, so that's something new from the bachelor party. It was also, I was surprisingly stayed up till about 3 a.m. both nights, which normally I'm falling asleep by 10:30 or 11. So I was actually pleasantly surprised by my ability to go back to the good old college days of staying up till all hours in the morning and drinking. And I've rebounded pretty quickly. My stomach still feels a little bit off from all the Shake Shack that we had. We had Shake Shack for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Sponsored by Shake Shack.
Half-sies, fourth-sies. We had like 6 meals of Shake Shack a day. So stomach's a little off still.
Well, I do remember. So first off, let me preface this by Saturday. From about 3 o'clock on, I was a mess. I don't remember anything after like 6 p.m.
Sam propositioned for me for something at one point. It was inappropriate. We'll leave it there. People can DM me if they really want to know the details on that.
I'll give you a hint. If we were to say it in emojis, it would be the emoji with an open mouth face, and then the eggplant emoji is exactly what I would preface that with. So, what I do remember on Saturday is our friend Mike buying Bobby a beer at the Nats game. Mike, remember that?
I do, yeah.
That's true. And I drank that. It was a tall boy. And that, honestly, I was feeling okay until then. And then I definitely got drunk after that one. So congrats, Mike. You win the contest of Get Bobby Drunk.
Woohoo. I saw you guys posting, and I thought, man, Bobby's doesn't appear to have that many drinks in his hand. I'm like, I need to change that. So I'm up here in Kitchener. I'm like, I can still get Bobby a beer somehow. So thanks to the wonderful world of technology, I PayPal'd Sam some money and said go buy him some beers.
Yeah.
What was funny too is that we were at the Nats game on Saturday. It was a 1 o'clock game, and the concession stand next to us, the close one next to us, all they sold was tall boys.
Well, it's the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't complaining. I thought it was great, but it was just fun. It just worked out perfectly that Bobby's beers were tall boys, and so he was able to enjoy baseball while having a little.
People kept making me waterfall and like lock arms and do all the stuff that you did back when you were binge drinking in college. Also, quick shout out to our good friend Bill Dubiel. How do you pronounce it? Dubiel, right?
I don't know. At RotoDubs.
At RotoDubs, who also he Venmoed me some money to spend on a drink, which I did later at the casino. I got another old fashioned, I believe. So thanks, Bill, for that. And thanks, Old Fashioned. This podcast is now sponsored by Old Fashioned in general. Maybe Maker's Mark will reach out. I don't know.
Let's say, like, who owns the rights to an Old Fashioned?
Nobody, but.
At RotoDubs, we never even mentioned this about 3 or 4 weeks ago, but he was put out. He made the list of the top 10 best. Was it baseball or football? Fantasy football projection at the end of Pro Football Focus, was it, or was it baseball?
I think it was baseball.
I think it was baseball.
Yeah. So shout out to him.
Yeah, he does football too, though. He's a good guy. Everyone should give him a follow. That's at RotoDubs. Again, speaking of football, we have a great show for you today.
Yeah, that we do, Bobby. So we're going to talk a little bit about some Russell Wilson news that came out this weekend. Also, Andrew Luck and the Colts are still playing the same old game they've been playing for a year, and so we're going to talk about that. We've got some great listener questions that we're going to hit into, and if we have time at the end, we're going to build our perfect QB, and I really want to put a man bun in our perfect QB. I think that would make it perfect. But before we get started, Mike's going to start off where you can follow him, Bobby's going to follow, and then I'm going to get started.
Yeah, guys, if you're listening out there, you can follow me on Twitter, at Mike Jarvis, MikeGervais.
You can follow me at Wrecked Fantasy. That's REKED Fantasy. And Wrecked is a pun, I guess, this week for what happened to me this weekend.
Yeah, I think I should change my Twitter handle to @WreckedNeedy1. Guys, you can find me at the Needy One. This is at Afterburners Pod. Be sure to follow us on Stitcher, Podbean, and subscribe to us on iTunes, Afterburners Podcast. Guys, Russell Wilson, obviously we all are in love with him. We think, I mean, he finished the number 1 quarterback last year in fantasy. A little bit of drama coming out of Seattle. So if I'm reading this correctly, there was an article that came out that the Seattle GM met with Josh Allen's people or something like that.
Some top Seattle scouts met with Josh Allen, even though they have no chance at actually drafting Josh Allen unless they trade up.
Here it is. Seattle GM John Snyder attended the pro day for Wyoming signal caller Josh Allen. And, Wilson's agents reached out and wanted to know why. And then they basically said there's nothing they need to know. That's what their response was to Russell Wilson's camp. So, Mike, I mean, is this much ado about nothing, or should there be genuine concern from the Russell Wilson fan base?
I don't think so. I think it is basically much ado about nothing. If you're a GM of a pro football team and you've got these potential franchise-altering quarterbacks, which for the record I don't think Josh Allen is, but I think you have to do your due diligence just on the off chance that he does happen to fall down to you where you draft. Russell Wilson, he's still relatively young, but you don't want to be in a situation where, say a year from now or whatever, God forbid he takes a vicious hit, blows out both of his knees and can't ever play again, and you're left with, Chad Henne as your signal caller. So why not have a guy in the pipeline if you can possibly? And again, I don't think they will look to draft Josh Allen. I think it's more just doing their homework, checking the boxes to say, yep, we went and looked at him, and that's about it.
I don't know if I fully agree, just because the GM going himself in person is kind of a big deal. It's not that typical for GMs to go themselves. They usually send their scouts. And also, I know from the last contract negotiations, things got a bit heated between Wilson's camp and the Seahawks. So while I think Wilson's going to be with the Seahawks long term, I think it's a bit of puffing their chest out for the upcoming contract negotiations where they're saying, oh, yeah, we're looking at quarterbacks, and Wilson's camp's going, I'm one of the greatest ever, so what are you doing? And then they're going to eventually probably settle on a number where neither side is quite happy with the number they settle on, but they'll end up being together for long term. Although, at the same time, Wilson has taken a lot of hits over the course of his career, and he's going to be, I believe, 28 or 29 going into the season. I love Russell Wilson. I don't think he's going to be bad, but the Seahawks have done a terrible job of protecting him in any way. And I could see it, especially because it is a business, it'd be such a football move to say, we didn't protect you, you got hurt a bunch, now we're going to cut bait because of our failure to protect you. We need to bring in someone new. Yeah.
Their O-line is pretty trash.
Yep, it is.
And it's been that way for the last 2 years.
Yep.
So there's a couple things here, right? Number one, so I'm looking at it right now, the Seahawks have the 18th pick. And I think we're all in agreement that Josh Allen probably won't be there at 18, right? Just from the way that all these mock drafts are going.
Even though he shouldn't be, Josh Allen will be a top 5 pick.
You think top 5, really?
Yep, Josh Allen will be a top 5 pick.
Okay. Well, you think he's going to go? Do you think he's going to drop to 18, Mike?
No.
Right. So there's going to be somebody with the Broncos or the Cardinals are definitely going to take him.
Or the Bills at 11 or 12.
Yeah, or the Bills. So there's no way he's lasting past 15, which is where the Cardinals are, right? So, obviously, or the Bills, which is 12. So there's that. So, I unless the Seahawks move up, which wouldn't make any sense.
No.
Number two, Wilson's under team control until, what do we say, 2019?
He's under team control through the 2019 season.
Okay, so as you said, he'll be a free agent when he's 28, 29.
No, he's playing currently in his 29 season. He'll be a free agent when he's 31.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that hurts him a lot. Because if he were to I know it's impossible, but if he were to be a free agent right now, he'd make about $30 million a year.
If not more.
Right, if not more. So this could be one of those things where I don't know if it's just a ploy by the Seahawks, or if it's just one of these things to keep the Wilson camp in check. But why would they even screw around? They just dropped all these players on defense. They have the money. Give the guys money.
Oh, sorry. Actually, this upcoming season will be Russell Wilson's age 30 season.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So.
Oh, I forgot because he played an extra year at Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, he came into the league at 24. So, he's not young by any means. 30 isn't over the hill when you have Brady playing in his 40s, but not everybody's Brady. So, maybe there is a bit more to this than I thought, especially because he is only under contract till 2020. By the time he gets under that or out from that contract, he'll be 33. Maybe they will look to move him and just totally, maybe getting rid of the defense was the front office signaling that we're going to start rebuilding now and we can't carry this cap hit from this 30-year-old quarterback, even if he is one of the greatest ever.
But Mike, wouldn't it make sense to draft a quarterback? Maybe not necessarily one of the top 5.
Maybe they'll go for Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, maybe not necessarily one of the top 5, or maybe if Lamar Jackson falls, wouldn't it make sense to just draft a quarterback to have him learn under Russell Wilson for 2 or 3 years?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you look at, Rodgers did it under Favre. Brady was behind Bledsoe. Brady only started because Bledsoe got that injury, years ago. So there's definitely something for that. And I think more teams are starting to look at doing that. It seemed like in the past, maybe 5-10 years ago, it was, we'll just spend all of our draft capital on other spots and we'll get a quarterback in free agency or via trade. But now I think teams, with the way the salary cap is and the way the NFL is moving, teams are putting more of a focus on getting a young signal caller, straight out of college, having him develop behind a current franchise quarterback that still has, 1 to 3 years left, and letting him marinate a little bit so that he can, move straight into that system.
Bobby, is there any reason, if you own Russell Wilson, is there any reason to do anything?
No, because even if he doesn't start for the Seahawks, he'll start somewhere. And honestly, I think that article mentioned they could see him going to the Chargers and taking over after Phillip Rivers leaves, or maybe even before that. That'd be a very interesting fit. Now that I said it, I'm very intrigued by the idea of Lamar Jackson going to the Seahawks and learning how to play quarterback from Russell Wilson. Because as we know, Russell Wilson is one of the most mobile quarterbacks in terms of scrambling out of the pocket. And that's one of Jackson's strengths. So if Jackson could learn from Wilson, I feel like that'd be a very, very good thing for him.
Well, plus, Pete Carroll's not afraid to run I hate this term, but it's
the play option.
Run the RPO.
The RPO.
Yeah, I hate that term, but he's not afraid to play that.
Yeah, they'd need a running back to do it with him. But yeah, it's an interesting scenario. And there could be more to it than I initially thought when I read that article.
So, Mike, you think Lamar Jackson could drop to 18, or do you think the Seahawks would move up to get Lamar Jackson?
I don't think the Seahawks will move up, but I think Lamar Jackson could drop. I've read a couple mock drafts, and he's generally going anywhere between 15 and 25, and then.
Yeah, I'm looking at one mock draft from SEC Country that has him going 29th. That seems a bit low for me.
I really doubt that the Seahawks realistically are going with a first-round quarterback. It's just a speculation on my part.
They have too many holes right now that I think they need to address. Or you could look at it and they could just basically be conceding already and saying, well, fuck, we're not going to beat the Rams for the division. So are we good enough to get one of those 2 wildcard spots this year? And if they don't think they are right off the hop, they could start to look forward to the future.
Yeah, and that could be a scenario where they look to even trade Russell Wilson.
Yep.
It's a shame this news didn't come out last week, because our guest last week is Pete Lawrence, who
is a
lives
Seahawks
in Washington,
fan.
Is a giant Russell Wilson fan. So Pete, if you're listening, by the way, you did a phenomenal job last week, Pete. We all thought you did a great job. Thank you so much for being on the show. But if you are listening and you want to feel like you want to add your thoughts, please go ahead and tweet at us or tweet what you think about this Russell Wilson news.
Maybe we need to get our good buddy Showtime Chase to chime in on the Russell Wilson thoughts, as he's a huge Seahawks fan as well.
I don't know. He usually floods my inbox with nothing but Mariners news.
It's the same here. Chase is a Seahawks season ticket holder.
Wow.
He doesn't even live in Seattle either.
Yeah, so if you have any thoughts, whether you're Pete or Chase, then you can send us a DM or tweet at us on the Afterburners pod and give us your thoughts on what the Russell Wilson news means and whether you think it's quote, nothing burger. I think that's what the internet calls it. Or it's, I don't know what the opposite of a nothing burger is.
The everything burger?
Yeah, the everything burger.
So speaking of nothing, somebody played nothing games last year. That was the worst segue ever. But last year, Andrew Luck obviously didn't play any games. Now, recently it was reported that Andrew Luck was throwing the Duke or couldn't throw the Duke. But either way, the news came out 5 days ago that he has not thrown a regular football. He's thrown a Nerf ball, but the Colts are still tweeting out that like this is okay. He's still ready to go by start of 2018. They did. Who's the GM? Jim Irsay?
Jim Irsay.
He did the same thing last year.
No, didn't it change? It's why am I blinking? Ballard, right?
That's the GM, right?
Yeah, Ballard.
Irsay's the owner.
Irsay is the owner. Ballard is the GM.
Yeah. So Irsay and Ballard have been shooting out tweets that, oh, this is nothing. Andrew Luck's still ready to play. Like, do we believe this?
No, because they said the exact same thing last season. So the Colts make me really mad. I don't know how many of the listeners know this, but Andrew Luck is my OG quarterback man crush. Like, think about how I feel about Blake Bortles now and multiply that by 1,000,000, and you have how I felt about Andrew Luck. I absolutely loved Luck. I had a bunch of teams that were called Up All Night to Get Lucky, a few other teams. He was on pretty much every single fantasy team that I had, including I think it was one of my first seasons I had him as a rookie, and everyone told me, oh, rookie quarterbacks never perform. And guess what? Andrew Luck did. Anyway, I am very mad about the whole situation. Similar to Russell Wilson, why do you not protect your franchise quarterbacks by getting them a good O-line? And it just makes me really mad that he may never play again, because if I could go back and give someone a healthy career, he is towards the top of my list. I know there are other guys like, Bo Jackson obviously is another guy that comes to mind, but if I could,
that's before your time, isn't it?
Yeah, but Andrew Luck is still someone I would give a healthy career if I could.
Mike, is this like the same thing? Like, is this going to be like a problem you think in 2018 again for Andrew Luck?
Basically, I hope not. I sold my one share of Luck that I had in Dynasty last year, but like Bobby, I'm a huge Andrew Luck supporter as well, and I didn't believe it last year when they said, oh, there's possibilities that it could be long term. I thought, oh, they're just fucking with us. He's going to be back, maybe not for week 1, but probably week 2 or 3. And then, he was shut down, and now when it's we're almost in May, and he's come out and said that he still hasn't thrown a real football. That really, really worries me. Like we said, the Colts O-line is trash as well. They don't seem to be, doing anything to protect them. And I think it's a legitimate concern. If you have Andrew Luck in Dynasty right now, I might look to sell and cash in. If you can get anything decent, I'd sell right now.
I think the first thing that I think of when I think of Andrew Luck is, you remember I can't remember if it was his rookie or sophomore year, he led that big comeback against the Chiefs at home in the playoffs. And the thing I remember the most is him diving over the end zone for that touchdown. Like, if you're the Colts GM and you see that, you're like, we got to do everything we can to protect this guy, and they've done absolute shit. I mean, they're really they've really thrown him under the bus. So here's what I'm thinking that this entire tweet job is by Irsay and Ballard. I just think they want to make sure they sell enough tickets again. I think that's all it is. I think they're basically I think they have zero faith that Andrew Luck's going to be able to play number one on time, let alone at all this year, maybe ever again. And they're like, oh, he'll be great. Like, we shouldn't believe that at all.
That's exactly what they said last season.
Yeah.
It was just a ploy to sell season tickets.
That's all it was.
I bought into it last year. I thought, oh no, Andrew Luck's going to be fine. Andrew Luck's going to be fine.
It's because it's hard not to believe it when you hear I know it's kind of whatever because NFL owners are like jabronis, but when you hear it, you're like, oh, okay, well, they have his best interests in heart, but looking back, they don't.
The one thing I will say that gives me at least somewhat of hope is early in his career, and Mike should know this, Drew Brees went through kind of a similar situation where I think he had hurt his shoulder and there were questions about whether he would ever play again. And then he came back and basically, as everyone knows, just lit up the league. Yep. I'm not
that
saying,
also, I think what's his name helped too. Sean Payton helped with that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Luck will follow that at all, but I'm hoping that he can because, as I've mentioned, I really do like Andrew Luck.
One last thing I'll say about that Brees shoulder. I'd like to just publicly state right now, thank you, Miami Dolphins, for passing on Drew Brees and saying, no, we don't think he's going to be able to perform, and we're not going to take a chance on him because of his physical. Thanks a lot, Miami.
We'll give him a nice shout out on Twitter. We'll say, at Mike Jarvis, huge fan that you guys passed on Drew Brees. Bobby, final word on Andrew Luck. What are we doing with him if you own him?
If you own him, I kind of agree with Mike at this point. I've been on the team hold for a while. I'd probably sell if you can still get a decent price just based on name value. However, on the flip side of that, if I don't have him and I'm on a 2 QB or super flex, I might shoot out some kind of quote unquote low ball offers just to see if I can pry him away. Just because on the off chance he does play, the price you're going to get him at now is going to be insane compared to what he does on the field, at least in theory.
Oh, for sure. If you were an Andrew Luck owner and somebody offered you a first round pick, say like 108, would you take it?
Yeah.
I
would.
And this is 2 QB. I'd probably pass.
2 QB or super flex.
I'd probably pass at that price.
Yeah.
It'd have to be 106 or higher for me to consider it.
Okay.
That's a fair question. I like that a lot, that we can ask our listeners and see what they say. Actually, I have one final comment about Andrew Luck. I'm sorry. I just said that last take. But do you guys follow at Capped Andrew Luck?
No, but I see his their retweets all the time.
Mike, you see it?
Yeah.
This shit is so funny. So it's a picture of Andrew Luck, and it's photoshopped as like a Civil War general. And so all he does is throw out tweets like it's a letter, and he's back in like the 1860s. So I have to read this out. So this is at Capped Andrew Luck. Dearest mother, I am once again among my men. In my exuberance, there has been some confusion. While I've been using live ammo with my sidearm, the rounds have not been the standard issue Duke. I simply cannot risk re-damaging my barrel. Soon, I shall upgrade. Andrew. His entire tweets are so fire because it's everything Andrew Luck. And it looks just like a Civil War general.
The avatar for that is great.
It's great, right?
I found it funny the first few times I saw it. After a while, I thought it got a little old.
You know what? You're a hard man to impress, Bobby. Let's move on then to a question. So we're going to hit a couple listener questions. So number one, guys, if you have any questions, hit us up. We will definitely do our best to respond. I think we've responded to almost all of them. But this first one comes from, now there's some context behind it because you know this guy. So it's at JTMac21.
Yeah, Justin.
So Justin writes us. He's asking about the situation in New England. Says, this is the Gronk situation. Unhappy with Pat's coaches, threatened retirement, what to expect this year, and going forward, whether in New England, elsewhere, or retirement. So apparently it came out that Jermaine Wiggins, the former tight end for the Patriots, thinks that Gronk is upset with his contract. Bobby, is this going to affect Tom Brady in any way? First off, what do you think is Gronk really upset, or is it just a ploy? And two, is this going to affect Tom Brady?
Yeah, we're going to take this from a Tom Brady perspective. You're always free to ask us any kinds of questions, but we will always find ways to tie it back to a quarterback. So in this case, I know there's rumors that Bill Belichick was also mad that Gronk was working out at TB12 because he didn't want basically anybody except Brady working at TB12. And as you know, things between Brady and Belichick reportedly got frothy too. So I would say that there's some context here, but honestly, everything that's come out about Gronk this offseason of, he might retire, he might go wrestle, he might become a movie star, he might do this. It's just him trying to get a bigger contract. I really don't think much of it. The only thing that I did think a little bit about is the retirement rumors, just because he had a few concussions. He's made his money. He's had a Hall of Fame career. So if he were to say I'm hanging it up, it wouldn't shock me. But I do think that almost everything he said is just basically going to the Patriots and saying, you guys need to pay me and pay me now. And the Patriots are going, well, maybe we'll just move on. So in terms of Tom Brady, though, I don't think it impacts him at all because Brady has about a season or two left, in my opinion. I know everyone's been saying that for 3 or 4 seasons now. And honestly, it wouldn't shock me to see Brady with his Cybertronic or whatever we're calling it, bionic arm, launching missiles in the year 2020 still, or not 2020, sorry, 2030. But if he only has a season or 2 left, I feel like he'll play with Gronk for the amount of time he has left, so it won't impact him in the least. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I basically agree with everything you said there. I think Gronk's trying to use this as leverage to get a deal. I'll admit I don't know how many years he has left on his deal right now. The only thing that I'll say is if, say he's got 2 years left and the Pats come and they say, well, we're not going to pay you what you want, I think Gronk would just say, screw it, I'm done at the end of his deal. I don't think he'll retire before the end of his deal by any means. And if he does retire and Brady still plays, I don't think it affects Brady. Gronk doesn't make Brady. I'm not going to say Brady makes Gronk, but together they're an iconic duo for sure. But Brady's good enough that he can basically make anybody really, really good. It won't affect him. He'll still be pretty well an elite guy as long as he wants to continue playing football.
I definitely think so. You're right; they're dynamic together, but I definitely think Gronkowski would immediately make a quarterback better. Obviously Brady is arguably the greatest ever, but I also think that Gronk is just such a freaking beast, and I hate him, which is why I think this is the most amount of respect I'll ever give a player. He would just immediately make a quarterback better. So wherever he ends up, granted, I just think this is not much ado about nothing. Number one, number two, I think Brady's fine regardless. Belichick and company will figure out something else. If Gronk over the middle, it'll be somebody else. And yep. Brady's going to light up the scoreboard by throwing 10 to 15 yards / wide receiver screens, and it's he's still going to have his fantasy numbers because he'll pass 45 times a game.
Absolutely. Yeah. If Gronk retires, Brady will still be A-okay.
Any much ado about nothing, Bobby?
Yeah, that's what I already said.
All right. So we got another question here. This comes from Andy Estridge. It's Big Shocker as Twitter handle @Andy Estridge. He asks us about backup quarterbacks who could become starters. I think this is a great question because we haven't really hit on this, at all. Mike, you want to start us off here? I know you got one name in particular.
Yeah, no, this is a fantastic question. I'm really glad somebody asked it. The thing for me is you sit there. There's some pretty obvious names that I'm not going to get into, but the guy who I'm really interested in, if he was to become a starter, if the current starter went down, is Cody Kessler in Jacksonville. Cody Kessler, he was in Cleveland before, and when he got the chance to start for the Browns, what was it, 2 years ago? He actually did fairly well considering what the Browns had to work with that year. Jacksonville is, I can't believe I'm actually saying this right now, but Jacksonville is an elite team. So they can rely on their defense and Leonard Fournette. Cody Kessler is not going to have to go out there and sling the rock, 35, 40 times a game for 400 yards. Cody Kessler, all he would have to do is basically be a game manager and, pass it 25 times a game. If he can manage 250 yards and a touchdown without giving the ball away, he'd be great for the Jags.
So what happens to Bortles then?
This is only if Bortles got hurt, I'm saying.
Oh,
I don't think
he won't because he's the GOAT.
I don't think Bortles is going to be absurd by Cody Kessler by any means. But I'm saying if Bortles were to say go down in preseason a la Tannehill last year, I think Cody Kessler could have a really decent fantasy season for the Jaguars this year. I'm looking at it right now. In 2016, Kessler played 6 games. He hit on 65% of his passes, went for 1,380 yards. He only averaged 153 yards a game that year. Threw 6 touchdowns, only 2 picks. It's pretty good.
He was arguably the best quarterback on the Browns roster for 2 seasons, but they didn't use him for whatever reason last season.
Oh, exactly. Well, last season was just a mess. He was saying, fuck, I want to get out of Cleveland somehow. How can I get out?
Hey, speaking of Blake Bortles, I have a fun Blake Bortles fact.
Ooh.
His name came up an absurd amount of times this weekend thanks to Bob at Bobby's bachelor party. It was absolutely absurd. I think his name came up about 46 times.
I would like to put it out there that I was not the one who brought up Blake Bortles, though. With
Bobby and Zach together, I'm surprised it was only 40 times. I thought it would have been more.
That's just the times I remember when I was sober. I was blacked out. I'm sure it was probably another 6,000 times.
Probably.
We should have put an over-under on how many times Blake Bortles' name came up.
I would have made a phenomenal bet at the MGM.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Tannehill,
Are you going Tannehill?
Well, no. Speaking of Tannehill, so Tannehill, as we know, is coming off, I believe it was knee injury, right?
Yeah, ACL, I believe.
And I'm going to throw up in my mouth a little bit saying this, but in the event that Tannehill can't play and the Dolphins don't draft a quarterback, Brock Osweiler could be like kind of relevant in 2 QB or Superflex. And the reason I'm saying that is he had one kind of decent season, if you remember. I think it was back in, I want to say 2015, 2015, I believe.
Yeah, 15.
And Adam Gase was involved with the Broncos at that time, or Adam Gase might have left the season before, but they knew each other from when Osweiler was backing up Peyton. So they've worked together before, and he should be familiar with his system. And even though, like, again, it's gross, if he were to become a starter, I feel like he could provide some fantasy relevant weeks. That said, I wouldn't want him in anything except best ball, because trying to guess when Osweiler would be decent would be one of the biggest chores ever. But if you had him in best ball, he could theoretically like give you a nice super flex plug and play, or so. I don't know. I'm getting grossed out just talking about it. So
I don't want to quit this podcast now that you said that.
Yeah, that's the end of the Afterburners pod, guys. It's been real great talking to you all.
Is Brock Osweiler still a free agent, or is he actually in Miami?
He's back up on the Dolphins.
Who was their backup last year?
Matt Moore.
Oh, that's right. Osweiler, man, I don't know if I can get behind that. I could see it though, just because of the sheer volume factor. Like he would have.
He's going to catch the ball.
I'm not saying he'd be good, but someone would have to throw the ball there, and he has Devontae Parker to throw to, who's like okay. He has Kenny Stills to throw to, who's better, and
especially considering any given I hate that term. Any given Sunday or like Monday or Thursday, any given game day, literally 3/4 of starters at quarterback in 2 QB leagues are viable options.
Right.
Yeah. Especially in 2 QB where the options are much more limited.
You get into super flex, then you could start like 3 quarterbacks.
No, just 2.
What?
Well,
it depends on the league.
You could have a 2 quarterback super flex league.
Yeah, mostly super flex leagues are just starting 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah. I meant 2 quarterback super flex leagues. So here, I don't know if this guy counts as a backup. So I'm going to throw a name out there because I'm almost positive. Now, granted, there was like this crazy trade rumor that came out yesterday, but I'm almost positive this guy's going to start as a backup. But I could definitely see somebody getting hurt in the first couple of weeks before the trade deadline, and then just being like, all right, like we have a shot to win this year. Let's just go get him. And you could see the Eagles moving Nick Foles to whatever starter position. The first thing that comes to my mind is Arizona, just because like Sam Bradford's like always getting hurt. But then again, like Arizona's not that good, right? They probably are taking a quarterback in the first round anyways. But I mean, what do you think? What do you guys think about that? Nick Foles, maybe?
Yeah, he was the obvious one who I thought off the top of my head.
He didn't play awful when he was in there.
No. That's not my issue with it. My issue with it is supposedly the Eagles are asking for like an astronomical price for Nick Foles.
Right.
That I think anybody's going to be willing to pay. Like they had.
Well, that's now.
I've heard rumors that people offered them 2nd-round rookie draft picks for Nick Foles. And the Eagles were like, no, we want a 1st and a 4th like we got for Bradford.
The Eagles
Get
are looking
the
for
fuck out of here with that shit,
The Eagles are looking
Eagles.
for like the 3rd round overall from the Jets, which I think is absurd.
No, they're not. That was just a made-up rumor.
Was it? Okay,
Yeah.
I was still hungover yesterday,
No,
so I was having a hard time reading.
They supposedly want the same haul that they got for Sam Bradford for Nick Foles, and that's not happening.
But the
fact that they got that for Bradford in the first place was ridiculous.
But could you see a team absolutely panicking and then like paying a little bit higher for Nick Foles at like if their quarterback goes down?
A 1st-round pick? No.
Or okay, let me phrase. Maybe it gets close to the trade deadline and they give up like a 2nd or a 3rd for Nick Foles.
That's the only way I could see is if it was like the week before the deadline and a certain team, we'll say a team like the Packers. Because the Packers were doing well last year before Rodgers went down.
Right.
And once Rodgers went down, everybody knew their season was fucked. But if it happens again this year, say Rodgers breaks his arm week 4, and the Packers are like, well, shit, we're sitting 3-1 right now, or 2-1 or whatever they'll be. We don't want to run into the same thing we did last year where we knew we were fucked right off the get-go. Screw it. Let's throw our draft capital away and see if we can bring Foles in and he can get us into the playoffs.
You also have to remember, though, the Eagles would have to have a backup quarterback, which is part of the reason they probably haven't already traded Foles for a second.
Right.
Also, in regards to the Packers, I know it's not the biggest trade ever, but they did just trade a 6th or 7th round pick, or maybe it was a corner for Deshaun Kaiser, who's now the backup.
You mean Pfizer?
So I think, yeah, Kaiser, clearly. But I think, don't get me wrong, I'm not the biggest Kaiser believer, although I think Hugh had a lot to do with that. But if they were willing to give up a pick for Kaiser, they'd probably turn to him first just to see what they have. And then I could see, like, oh, if it doesn't work out for a game or two and they are still have a winning record at that point, maybe they'll go, all right, we'll try to trade for Nick Foles. But I honestly just can't think of too many teams that are going to give the Eagles what they want for Foles unless their asking price for Foles comes way down.
Which I think it would as the season went on. But that's...
Well, no, I don't think – I completely disagree because I think if anybody understands the value of having a good backup quarterback, it's the Eagles who, surprise, just won the Super Bowl with a good backup quarterback.
Yeah.
So I think that the Eagles are not going to change their price because they have no reason to get rid of him and they have no one behind him that can back up Wentz as well as he can.
Plus, the Eagles need to make sure that Wentz is fully healthy and fully recovered before they deal him. I think that's probably the real reason why they haven't dealt him yet, is because they're not entirely sure how healthy Wentz is.
Yeah, that's fair. I also just think they understand the value of having a good backup quarterback on your roster, and I think that the league in general may start trending more towards having, or trying to have anyway, better backups than we've seen.
So let me throw another name at you guys, and I made the mistake of using the Arizona Cardinals as an example, but I completely forgot that Mike Glennon is on that team. Could you see Mike Glennon potentially sneaking up into that list as somebody who's relevant week in and week out?
Not week in and week out, but if Bradford loses his knees because his knees are shattered, basically.
Well, wouldn't it be the same thing as Osweiler?
Yeah, it would be. I mean, if you all right,
relevant might not be the best term, but maybe like an option.
Yes, he would be an option, and I'd say Glennon versus Osweiler.
I don't think Glennon.
I think I'd go Osweiler, actually.
I think I'd go Glennon too, Mike. I'm with you. Plus, Glennon has like Larry Fitzgerald to throw to, and I would just throw to him 40 times a game.
Exactly, and you're going to have DJ in the backfield who can catch screens.
Good call. Good call. I like that.
Yeah, I'd still take Osweiler. I don't know. I just have a feeling that at some point this season, Osweiler is going to have like one fantasy relevant week.
That's quite the hot take.
Yeah.
That's the hottest take I've ever heard.
Disgusting.
If you could build the perfect quarterback, what part of Brock Osweiler would you choose?
His last name. It's a cool last name.
Actually, I like his first name, to tell you the truth. I think like
he sounds like a create your own QB in Madden. Like if you made up a name, it would be like Brock Osweiler or like Brock Wolfgang, something like that. But I mean, I don't really know if there's any part. I guess supposedly he had a big arm, so like maybe his arm. But I wouldn't be taking any part. If I was building a perfect QB, and I know this is our next segment, so I guess I'm just leading it off here. I would probably take Aaron Rodgers' arm or touch on the deep pass, Drew Brees' accuracy, Russell Wilson's legs, and let's see, Dan Marino's brains, and
not Peyton Manning.
Maybe Peyton. Actually, yeah,
Manning's like an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, Peyton Manning's brains and Blake Bortles' heart.
What? There's always got to be a Bortles. It's always got to be like a Bortles like comment in there. Mike, are you like? I think we're all saying Russell Wilson's legs, right?
Yeah. So Bobby basically just snaked the majority of my components. I said Russell Wilson's legs, Brees' accuracy. I went with Tom Brady's brain over Manning.
I think that's like a toss up, right?
I just love how composed Tom is and how he always knows what to do. What else did I pick here? So I took Wilson's legs, his ability to scramble, Brees' accuracy, Brady's mind. I was gonna go with Rodgers' deep ball, but because I don't want to take everything that Bobby said, I'll go with Stafford's deep ball.
That's a good one.
I would almost go with Michael Vick's deep ball. He could chuck it like 90 yards. I think.
Yeah, I was just trying to stick with current quarterback.
It's hard to go against.
Fair enough.
It's also hard to go against Rodgers when he can complete Hail Marys at pretty much any time he wants.
Right, but I feel like Green Bay gets a lot of calls their way, but that's different.
But he also has insane ball placement on his deep ball. He's
right. And the last thing that I'll say is I'm going to go with Cam Newton's swagger.
Oh, see, my next question was who's swagger, and for me, it came down to 3. I had Cam on there because I really like it, but then I also like Phillip Rivers and his moxie.
I do like Phillip Rivers' swagger,
but I think the one I'm going to go with is Baker Mayfield.
That's who I was just about to say.
I love Baker Mayfield's like moxie and swagger.
I was going to say I just want to see Baker in the NFL first before.
His swagger is already on next level. Like I was listening to an interview with him where he said that he listens to tapes of anyone who knocks him as motivation for, and like he showed up to, I think it was not the combine, but it was like pro day wearing like a sign.
Yep.
Someone. He's just like obviously the crotch grab. Like, come on, man. It's hard to top that. Like even Cam Newton probably looks at his swagger and goes, damn.
Yeah. Baker apparently also has a list in his phone of tweets that people, like negative tweets that people put out about him that he reads before games as well too.
Yeah, I think anyone who has Baker Mayfield swagger is on next level swagger.
I would definitely take, now I'm going to say this in the least homosexual way possible, but I would definitely take Cam Newton's smile and face. I think he is easily the most attractive quarterback in the NFL.
Lies. Jimmy Garoppolo, Jimmy GQ, is the most handsome man pretty much ever.
Is he dating that like Instagram smoke show?
He probably is. Have you looked at him? Just that smile? Like, honestly, if I will say this, and my fiance may not like this, if Jimmy GQ came up to me and was like, hey, you want to make out? I don't even know if I'd have to be drunk. I'd probably be like, let me think about this. And I might do it. That's how handsome Jimmy GQ is.
So if Jimmy GQ propositioned you like Sam did this weekend,
I might have said yes to that, honestly.
Bobby's like got a crush on 2 QBs. He's got a crush on Blake Bortles, and he's got a crush on Jimmy Garoppolo.
I wouldn't say I have a crush on Blake Bortles. I just really appreciate Blake Bortles as a human being, and I like him because of The Good Place. But Jimmy GQ, man, he is an attractive human being, and I'm glad that he is off the Patriots because now I can fully support him.
Okay, so finally, one last question. What about toughness?
That's actually a really, no pun intended, but that's a really tough one. There's a lot of tough guys out there. In terms of toughness, man.
I mean, obviously have my biased answer.
Ben Roethlisberger?
Yeah, I would go toughness.
He is hard to take down.
But also Andrew Luck, after dealing with all his shit the last 4 or 5 years, he seems pretty tough, right?
I don't know. I mean, I guess so. Mike, who would you take for toughness?
That's a really, really good one.
Would you say it's a tough question?
I said it's a tough question.
Just like the joke that Bobby just made?
That is a very tough question. You know what? I'm going to sound like a bit of a homer here, but Stafford has taken some fucking shots.
He has.
Right back up.
That's who I was thinking of, too.
I really, really like the way that he does that.
It hurt off either.
No, there was a couple games last year where you could tell he was playing with like one leg, half an arm, and he's still out there slinging the rock. So I'd probably go Stafford.
I might say Phillip Rivers here, and I think it factors into his swagger where, like, if you take down Rivers, even if he's, like, hurt, he just seems to play the rest of the game pissed off that he got sacked. And, like, I've heard rumors of, like, him, like, playing with, like, spraining fingers or whatever and just being like, fuck you, you didn't take me out of this game, I'm taking you out of this game.
Yeah, Rivers would have been my second choice, actually, I think.
Is there any part that we're taking of Eli Manning?
No.
I'm going to say no.
I mean, like, maybe
this is a knock on Bobby.
Obviously. Maybe his, like, charm. You know, like I said, like, Blake Bortles' heart earlier. Maybe Eli Manning's heart. He's got a big heart, and he's, like, you know, he's a charming guy. Like, Sam met him, and he, like, gave him some, like, nerdy answer about, like, winning the real Super Bowl, about his commercials.
Yeah.
So I feel like Eli Manning's just a good dude, and, like, some of these other quarterbacks, like, outside of the NFL are probably not quite as good dudes as Eli is. Eli's done a lot for the community. Breeze, too. Like, if we're talking about people who've done a lot for their community, Breeze is definitely up there.
I don't
But
think it's more than Breeze.
Yeah,
I don't even think it's close.
so like if we're tying it to like charitable stuff, then you take Breeze's heart. But I already took him for his accuracy, so I'll say Eli Manning's heart.
I will say this about Eli. I did think it was pretty cool. I saw a thing on Twitter, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago or so, that some fans invited him to their wedding. Like they sent him a legit invitation, and he actually responded. He declined, but like he responded and wrote them a nice little note and all that. So I thought that was pretty cool of him to do that.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Regretfully, I have to decline. My wife and kids and I are going to the beach that weekend. However, if you're doing anything the following weekend or the weekend after, be sure to hit me up. Something
Mike,
like that.
why didn't you tell me when I sent out my wedding invites? I want a response from Eli. I want him to come to my wedding.
It's because I'm still waiting for my invite. So
Wow. I see how it is.
Bobby, this is the perfect platform for you to invite Eli Manning.
it really is.
Eli Manning, if you're listening, you can come to my wedding on May 12th at Bear Mountain.
Send Bobby a DM at Rec Fantasy or Afterburners Pod, and he'll give you the place, date, time, and address.
That invitation would also be open to Jimmy Garoppolo, but I don't think he can show up because I'm not sure I'd actually get married if he did.
I really hope Grace listens to this.
Same here.
All right, guys, we're out of time. This was a great episode, but we are coming down to the wire, so we have to go with our burns. Mike, you got anything to burn? Is it another Canadian burn?
No, it's a burn in general. So, as some of our listeners know, I'm a pretty big wrestling fan, and past Sunday was WrestleMania. Now, I wasn't able to watch live because I had to work. So I told anybody who I could think of that might potentially spoil it to not send me spoilers. And everybody was great. So, but in the past, people have not been so good. My burn is those assholes who specifically go out of their way to spoil something for you. So I get it. You can.
You mean by sending you stuff, not going on social media, right?
Yeah. Like I get it. If you don't want to know like the score of a football game or who won at WrestleMania, don't go on social media. I get that. But if there's a asshole out there who's like, hey, I know Mike doesn't want to know the score or who won, I'm going to text him anyway. Those people have a certain place in hell. Like, fuck you. You're the lowest of the low.
Could you imagine somebody that does that while they're driving in Canada?
That while working at Wendy's, probably be my least favorite.
That's Mike's worst enemy right there. I'm pretty sure I know what yours is going to be, so you can go.
We went to the Nats game for Bobby's bachelor party this weekend, and it was about 40 degrees, freezing out. And the umpire, number one, Marty Foster is the umpire for the game behind the plate, and his strike zone's kind of erratic. Whatever, like I'm not mad about that. But in the fourth inning or so, third inning, fifth inning, something like that, Anthony Rendon struck out looking on questionable call. And Anthony Rendon literally just flipped his bat towards the dugout, and then started taking off his gloves, and Marty Foster ran him. When you see that he's not even moving his lips, and Marty Foster throws him out, no one came to see the Marty Foster's umpire. We're here to see the Nationals and the Mets, not some fat fuck who is cold and is tossing stars out. So Marty Foster, you're my burn of the week.
All right, so mine, I had a different one in mind, but Sam just reminded me. First of all, had he not done that, I would have burned Marty Foster because I was there to watch my fantasy players, and Anthony Rendon is one of my main fantasy players. He was my first overall pick in our fantasy baseball startup a few years ago because I thought he'd be my second baseman of the future, and it turned out he was not. But anyway, my second burn, and I kind of apologize because this guy was nice to us, but Thomas Jefferson, we took a picture with you before the game. I was rooting for you in the president's race. You had the thing in the bag. You were sprinting well ahead of everybody. And then you fucking lost the race. Did you trip on your own feet or something?
He lost to Teddy, who never wins.
Yeah, he lost to Teddy Roosevelt, who there was a long streak of Teddy Roosevelt never winning the president's race.
3 years or some shit.
Yeah, I also was rooting for the Nats that day. Everything I was rooting for to happen just did not happen. But Tom, you really let me down. I whispered encouragement in your ear when we took that picture. I went, better win. I'm putting some money on you. And then he didn't. So Thomas Jefferson, you burnt.
Wow, that's aggressive. Burning the forefathers.
Yep.
Well, to be fair, he also owned slaves. I mean, that's kind of
Yeah, he is a pretty terrible person. Maybe we shouldn't have taken that picture with him, but it's too late now.
That'd be more of a reason to burn him than losing the president's race, I would think.
Well, maybe we'll burn him next week for owning slaves.
Yeah. I like
Going with the historical burns.
All right, guys. Guys, thanks so much for listening. That about does it for today. Mike, why don't you tell us where we can find you? Bobby, follow up, and then we'll say our goodbyes.
You guys can find me on Twitter at Mike Jarvis, all one word. Over to you, Bobby.
You can find me at Rec Fantasy. That's REKED Fantasy. You can find my work at DLF Football and at 2QBs. I'm also a draft consultant at Draft Consultant Inc.
Be sure you guys take advantage of Bobby's free content and also sponsored content, as well as pay for his great advice. Bobby's doing some great stuff for 2QB Dynasty Leagues. You can find me at The Needy One. Obviously, this is Afterburners Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes. Leave us a review and send us some questions. We always love to hear from listeners, and we'll be happy to answer anything that you may have. Other than that, have a great week.
Keep it classy, Fantasy Twitter.
Oh, but the fire went wild. I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, 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 and the flames went higher. And it burns, burns, burns.